Frustrating how the lawmaking process could be corrupted. Our next guest argues that some of our democratically created laws are actually bad for the U.S. and stifle participation in the democratic process. Joining us now, New York Times best-selling author Elie Mystal. His new book is entitled Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America. He's also a justice correspondent and columnist for The Nation. I think fair to point out that you're not saying don't follow the law.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying don't follow the law. I'm black, and I know that doesn't always work out very well for us. We're not like the people who can attack the Capitol. But I am saying that many of the laws that we have in this country are absolute trash. Right. And one of the reasons why I wrote the book is that somebody on my side of the aisle has to start writing Project 2029. Right? Somebody has to start writing a positive agenda for the Democratic Party. I didn't want to write another Orange Man bad book, because obviously the Orange Man is very bad and very dangerous to all of us. But the Orange Man represents a aggressive Republican policy agenda. Right. And so what I'm trying to do is point out what an aggressive Democratic policy agenda looks like. To go back to your earlier segment about Chuck Schumer and how there's so much Democratic angst and anger about Chuck, I think one of the problems that many people in the base have is that the Democrats always seem to be in a fetal position. The Democrats always seem to be in a defensive posture. We're always running around trying to pick up after Republicans smash anything. Well, let's go out there and talk about the positive Democratic agenda. Let's talk about the things that we can do on the front foot, and that's why I wrote the book.
Okay, so like what?
Well, we could eliminate all voter registration laws. See, when Democrats get in charge, we try to protect voting rights. We don't make voting easier. Now, I'm all for voter eligibility requirements. We might disagree about what those requirements should be, but, you know, I'm going to say that, like, there should be an age limit to vote. I might say 16, you might say 18, but I'm not going to say 8. Right? Mm-hmm. So we're going to agree that there should be voter eligibility requirements. But once you're eligible, why do you have to pre-register? Why is that even a thing? It wasn't a thing in this country at the founding. We didn't have voter pre-registration in 1787. We didn't have voter pre-registration in 1821. We only started having voter registration, generally speaking, after the Civil War. Why do you think that is? It's because a bunch of freed African slaves were migrating up north, and all of a sudden New York was like, we need some registration up in here, right? A bunch of immigrants from Europe, mainly Ireland and Italy, were coming to New York. People were like, oh, we need some registration in here. If you're eligible to vote, you should be automatically registered to vote, and that is how they do it everywhere else but us. Everywhere else but us either has automatic registration or some other form of forced registration for everybody, so that you don't have this disconnect between eligible voters and registered voters. That's the first law in the book that we could change. And it's to see how that's different than just saying we have to protect voting rights. No. We don't have to protect voting rights. We have to expand voting rights so that the 90 million people that sat on the couch and sat out this last election between democracy and fascism, so that maybe they have a little bit of an easier time to get up off the couch and come participate in the democracy.
Right. Elie, wouldn't it also be, if we focused on laws like you're doing in this book, we get away from personality politics on the left, or for that matter, the right, where people run for office to change laws and to talk about how laws are impacting pro or con, rather than whether or not they can get a certain amount of likes on social media, or whether they have charisma or not. Because there's no real... We have lawmakers that never discuss laws.
One of the things that you know in our community, Al, is that when you talk to non-voters, I'm not talking about black Republicans. You can get Byron Donalds up here and he'll tell you whatever you want to hear. When you talk to people in our community that are not voting, what they will tell you is that it doesn't seem like it matters. Nothing changes no matter who gets elected, right? And now I disagree with that. I have been in the barbershop disagreeing with that. I don't go very often, but you can imagine when I go, it's straight, right? I disagree with that. But part of what I'm doing in this book is saying, like, well, these are the policies that we could change. That if we elected better leaders, more focused leaders, leaders committed to our communities, these are the laws that would change and would improve your life tomorrow. I have a whole chapter about felony murder. I have a whole chapter about stand your ground. These are two of the most racist laws that we have on our books that lead to the over-incarceration of people in our community.
So highlight one more of these laws for us that you dive into in the book.
Yeah, so I go really hard on immigration. People who are following the tragedy and the abduction of Mahmoud Khalil have recently become aware that the 1921 Immigration and Nationality Act allows Marco Rubio to pull people's green cards by fiat, just because he says so. Well, in this book, I talk about how the 1921 Immigration and Nationality Act is one of the worst laws in the country that was made based on the testimony and science of a Nazi eugenicist. And when I say a Nazi eugenicist, I mean he's an American eugenicist that did so well, the Nazis was like, bring him over here. We're going to give him a medal at the University of Heidelberg in 1935. But in 1921, he helped Congress write the Immigration and Nationality Act, which remains one of the most racist laws in our country. That is something that we could change tomorrow that would not only free people like Mahmoud Khalil, but completely reform and reimagine our immigration process.
The new book, Bad Law, 10 Popular Laws That Are Ruining America, goes on sale tomorrow. Author and justice correspondent and columnist for The Nation, Mystal, thank you so much for coming